This is the Honest Garage Podcast, the Expert Spotlight Edition, where experts help you drive toward success.
Welcome to the Honest Garage Podcast, Expert Spotlight Edition. I'm your host, David, and with me today is Paul. Today, we're going to talk about one of the biggest blind spots in the shop. What's really happening between the phone ringing, the advisor answering, and the customer actually showing up. We're going to cover call performance, advisor workload, missed opportunities, customer communication, AI, and how shop owners can stop guessing and start using the data they already have to make better decisions. Our guest today is Jay Power, CEO of Oktorocket. Oktorocket is built for auto repair shops as an all-in-one phone system, CRM, and analytics platform focused on customer communication, retention, and shop performance. Jay brings a unique mix of technology, contact center, software, management, and real shop experience. In our prep call, he talked about coming from enterprise software, working around large-scale phone systems, and also having firsthand experience helping run a European repair shop. Oktorocket also recently released its 2025 Auto Repair Industry Report, which looks at the data behind what is driving shop performance. Jay, welcome to the Expert Spotlight of the Honest Garage Podcast. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, David. That was awesome. Thanks for the great intro.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's always a good time to get people on the show from the industry with such value to add. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on. Love getting to talk to owners and marketing companies and everybody who's involved in trying to make this service industry sing, right? So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And before we really dive into the data, give us the quick version on your background. You've been in technology, contact centers, software, you've been inside the repair shop. How did all of that lead to you at Oktorocket?
Yeah, that's a great question, David. I don't know how it led to where I'm at. No, I've always had a passion for technology. More importantly than technology, I've always loved business. The thing about business that I think is super interesting is that it's just a group of imperfect people trying to do something perfectly. And it's how those people work together. And I tell the people I work with every day, there's more important things than your job in life. There's family. There's many other things in life that you can do to bring fulfillment. But we get this opportunity to come together every day, try to do this thing right, and try to serve our customers well. And that to me is exciting, and then that's fun. And I love that about business. Technology is just another layer of it. And I used to be an engineer, routing, switching. I set up and design internet and fiber networks for K through 12 schools across the country, many different state networks. And so from that, I started moving into different things and started managing those groups and moving into software. And from there on, I just love it. I love managing people, which I don't think you hear too often from people about managing people. It's a very difficult job. But I do find management is an honor and the way that we should treat it by being able to serve others and help them be successful in their lives and not just their job. So that's where it led me to this. And that aspect of mindset is what helped me always be in leadership positions, because I just like seeing people be successful, and I like them move on in their life and hit goals and have families and make an impact and do big things. So that's why I'm here.
That's awesome. We love to hear that. In our prep call, you mentioned something interesting. You said you've seen big enterprise software companies struggle to connect systems together. And then you saw what Oktorocket was doing for independent auto shops. What stood out to you?
Oh, man. I'll give you a real practical example. In Oktorocket's history, at the beginning of 25, we merged together our analytics and our communication platform. We just finished unifying those platforms into one platform. And if cloud computing, there's quite a different components of architectures that you can take. And what was great about our two different platforms, they were on completely separate cloud platforms. So it's not a small feat to unify platforms. It sounds great and it's cool when you go and you log in and you see everything in one place, but on the back end, it is a lot of work. I've been through probably 7 or 8 acquisitions, being the acquired and also the acquiring. And I've watched many companies struggle just to unify platforms. And these guys, the way that they built the architecture and the way they understand their software and the way they work, we were able to actually get it done. within a year of unifying the platforms, putting together the platforms, we brought it together. So it's impressive. We move quick. The architecture is incredibly stable. There's just a lot of thought that went into it. The guys who are designing it, they've been in the industry. They have the highest certifications you can get in the world for these types of platforms, and they just do stellar work. So as soon as I met them and I saw that, and I'd been around large contact centers, and when I say large, 50 to 80,000 agent contact centers, global corporations. I know big contact centers, and I know how messy they are and how fragmented the systems and just what a mess it is. And I saw that and I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about tech debt. I don't have to worry about all this other stuff. We can just move forward and make a difference. And that's what really led me to it. So that was a long answer. Sorry, Paul.
No, it's great.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I think it really ties into the fact that you like that human-driven leadership piece. You recognize the experts that were on the team and saw that you didn't have to come in and reinvent the wheel. You just had to point the right people in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the software you buy and that people buy, really, the success of that software is derived by the people who make up the company. We get that.
Yeah.
But you're going to go on a demo, you're going to see a piece of software, you're going to be like, oh, that's pretty cool. But the reality is how that software operates from day one to day 24 months, 36 months, 48 months is all dependent upon the people who are developing, QAing, deploying, managing, supporting those systems. So you don't buy just software, you work with people. And I always tell salespeople, people don't buy product, they buy from people, and they get to know you and they find out, okay, is this guy really going to help me when things break? Because every piece of software is developed by humans. It's going to break. It's going to have problems. So it's more about the people you're working with than it is about the thing you're buying. So that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I think that really takes us into the thing that I know that shop owners are really going to care about, which is the performance of how it's actually working and how it's going to give them insight into how their shops are actually working. Not just dashboards for the sake of dashboards, but stuff that actually changes their revenue. When you look across shop data and with everything that you've got in your own background and all the data now that you have at your exposure with Oktorocket, what are the metrics that are really standing out to you that really seem to move the needle for shop metric or that it really moved the needle for Oktorocket customers?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a huge topic.
Yeah.
The industry report, just let me set some context because I know you mentioned it. The industry report, we took data from over 1,000 locations in the US. It's real data. It's not survey data. It's not something somebody could fabricate. It's real data anonymized from all of our customers in the US. It is data pulled from their communication, meaning your inbound and outbound voice calls. We integrate with shop management systems. So we pull all the RO data, all the close rates, all the technician information, all the advisor information. And we've learned from that and we put it together. And it was fascinating to see some of the correlations that you kind of know, but you don't really know what are the thresholds or benchmarks that are really important. So I'll start with a couple of them. The communication side to me is really fascinating because I don't know that there's a report out there that goes into the performance of a business based upon their phone calls and their call volume and staffing. So one of the things that we saw across, and so we did segments, American and import, Euro, and then diesel. And we split them apart because they're similar, but they each have their nuances about how they operate, the types of ROs, the type of jobs they do, the things they accept. So we did that, but across all of them, we saw some really important things. The one that was really interesting was answer rates. We know that shops just can't answer every single call. That's also why we offer spam filtering, so we can eliminate all the spam calls, because we want the calls you answer to actually mean something, to use your people's time. The most costly call is the one your advisor actually picks up and has to work, right? So let's make sure they're worth something. But the interesting thing about it was when you take the amount of calls you get in a month at a shop, any owner can do this. Take the number of calls you get in a month, divide it by the number of advisors you have, and you'll come up with your call volume per advisor, right? It's pretty simple. It's not always exact, but it's pretty simple. What we found is that when call volume per advisor goes over 500 calls per month per advisor, their answer rate starts to hit a threshold below 85%, going down to 75%, down to 65%. It drops off pretty quick. Yeah. But what was interesting about that, for the calls they do answer, there are less sales, lower ROs on those calls for the ones they answer than the ones that they answered when their answer rate was higher. So the other
They
thing we
brought
found,
less energy.
yeah, it's the more stressed they are to answer the call, the worse they do in performance. Duh. We all would know that. But unless you see it in a graph, like the translation is there's probably shop owners out there who are sitting on the fence of hiring another advisor because they know the expense. They know what that's going to cost them. I've had friends that own shops that tell me a good advisor pays for itself, right? It takes time to ramp them up, but they pay for themselves. But if you look at your answer rates, you start to see, okay, I see the tipping point. I know where I need to make that call and I can plan for it because I need to have a bench, need to plan 3 months ahead of time, all that stuff. We do the same thing. The other interesting thing we saw is that shops that have an answer rate above 85%, they write 50 to 80 more ROs than shops below 85%. Those are shops with the same call volume, the exact same call volume. If their answer rate is above 85%, they write 50 to 80 more ROs, right? The average RO is $680 or 608. I think I might have moved the 8 or 0, but $600 for each one. You write 50 to 80 more at the same call volume today as tomorrow. You're doing the exact same thing. You're just answering more. Come on. It's stuff like that you start to see when you look at actual communication information and staffing ratios and performance. And it's really pretty fascinating.
Yeah. And I think that runs beautifully into the next question. Is you had mentioned that small changes in close ratio can create major revenue swings. And I think that the idea of having the appropriate number of service riders and having their focus be on customer service and sales there really increases that. Are there other small percentage improvements that matter for a shop or something they can look at regarding your data?
Yeah. And I'm going to throw some numbers at you. But one thing I would say on the staffing side that you should think about, we have an analytics platform. And so we try to highlight insights and analytics to a shop owner so they can know what's going on. But sometimes metrics aren't the right metric to focus on. So one of the things we found across the industry is that there's typically a ratio about 3 techs per advisor is what we saw, which is the good range. And we saw them run month sales per advisor was always within a range of 100,000 to 140,000. But what we saw is when you overload an advisor, you see their sales per month jump and you see it spike. But what was interesting is we overlaid revenue for those shops. And what you actually see is either stagnant, low, decreasing revenue, or it flatlines and it doesn't go up. So what you're essentially saying is if you're staring at the wrong metric, hey, my sales guy's out there crushing it. My advisor's crushing it. He's doing 180, he's doing 200 a month. No, he is swimming, man. He is almost above eyes. He's like looking for the breath, right? Well, he might be loving it if he's getting commissions or whatever. Your shop revenue is actually being harmed by that because he's overloaded. And then once they moved from 4 techs to 2 advisors, you'd see it come into balance, but revenue would take a jump. And so it's those kind of like things you start to see and you put together and you realize, okay, some of the metrics I'm watching might not be the right metrics. I need to pull the trigger on that next advisor because I'm at that ratio and I need it to operate in a healthy performance so I can actually see revenue growth and not just sales metrics grow, right? So those are really interesting. The other key thing, we saw stuff around close ratios and gross profit, parts cost, stuff like that. There's a lot around parts discipline, I think, that gets talked about in the industry. And I'm not here to say what's the right method or anything, but we did find that if you simply have, if you improve your parts cost if you reduce it by 4 percentage points, that equates to, if on the averages, about $21,600 per month in increased revenue. And so it essentially, look, hey, we're not talking about huge things, right? One of the things we also do is we expose gross profit and parts margin in some of our reporting so they can see what their parts margin are on jobs. So they know which jobs have the most margin. They can make discount calls and all that kind of stuff. But the real big piece is like, look, you don't have to make huge changes and huge swings, just a little bit more discipline. It's stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think it's focusing on the right metrics. And we have that conversation with shop owners a lot where the numbers that they want to track are not always the numbers that they need to track. And that is a really hard thing to communicate. So I appreciate you sharing that, because it's that perspective from somebody else in the industry will hopefully help people see that the leverage that they have in their business could be a small change, like
Yeah.
that can create the big leverage, instead of something like they have to completely overhaul their staff or something like that.
And
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
that's important for any size shop as well. You have a lot of independents who are a service writer slash owner, and they may have an assistant and they can't quite yet pull the trigger, yet they have 3 techs and they could have 4. It's a good thing for them to hear. Pull the trigger. You're probably gonna there'll be a little dip because of training, because of how the systems that you have in your shop, but you're going to, in the long run, generate more revenue. And if that's not what you're in this for, then you need to take a look at it. We all want to live a lifestyle that's appropriate for our families. And if you could just add somebody to make that happen, then let's do it. But it seems scalable to MSOs as well. Like when they're trying to grow and go into a new market or promote a shop that's not doing so well, take a look at those little metrics, and especially that ratio. And I think it could really make a big difference.
yeah, you're right. The size of the shop, it doesn't necessarily matter. It matters on how you approach it. And I think for smaller shops, it could be, like you said, an assistant. It could be just a simple conversation with one person that runs your parts counter and setting the discounts and go, hey, get me two more points, or figure out what is my matrix on these parts and which ones do I have bad percentages on or not. Set a goal for them. Hey, this month I need 2 more points. You get me 2 more points, I'll get you a steak dinner down the road. Like stuff like that. Steak in the belly does a world of good for a lot of salespeople. I'll tell you right now. But I'll tell you, like stuff like that. But then in the larger MSOs, it becomes a strategy. It then becomes part of the daily lessons. I had one shop owner tell me, he said, look, if you don't tell them 3 times verbally in an email and put the thing on the wall in front of them so they see it every day, you haven't actually told your people. I'm going to say that again. Like you haven't actually told them if you haven't told them 3 times in 3 different ways. And the reality is our staff gets busy. We talk about it here in our support teams. If I don't remind them ongoing and they don't see it as a part of their thing, and we have it posted in there, here's the thing we want. We want quality over quantity. We want to make sure we're doing this and this. And we're going to go over it monthly, but you also need to see it during the day. So if you haven't done those things and you're like, oh, I told my team, I told them on our monthly, on our Zoom call, guess what they did? They forgot when they got off the Zoom call, or they met Paul over there and they were talking about that Corvette they saw on the street. Then they go back to their desk and they're like, what did we talk about? Tell them 3 times, man. So I heard that and I remembered it. And now I incorporated how we communicate with our people to make sure, because you got to cut through the noise.
Yeah,
That's great.
I love that advice. Transitioning just a little bit, you talked about on the prep call, Oktorocket's looking at things like a revenue chain or a profitability chain. Can you explain what that is in shop owner language, and how do those numbers connect instead of living inside of the separate reporting platforms?
Yeah. So in the industry report, we present 3 different chains: the revenue chain, the profit chain, and then the third chain, which escapes me now that you mentioned it and I'm on this podcast, but you have to get the industry report to find it. But
there you go.
What we do is we put together the actual metrics that make up that chain. So when you modify one or the other, it shows the outcome. And as an example, I gave you the profitability chain that comes to parts, cost, and discipline and all that. That's part of those points. But the other was like close ratios, and looking at if you just increase your close ratio by 6%. And close ratio is not the only thing you have to look at. You have to look at ARO as well, because we also found that shops that have higher close ratios don't always have the average RO as shops with lower close ratios. So there's more things you have to look
sell low ticket stuff.
Yeah, you can go hammer on your advisor to do the close ratios to be higher, but you actually have to look at some more metrics to make sure that you're actually going after the right thing. But we found that even just 6 points increase of close ratio, we find that based upon the average ROs, that's $24,600 a month that you're going to have increased just by 6 points of increase on close ratio, right? That's the revenue chain. So when you look at those metrics combined, you start to say, okay, I can impact my revenue chain by impacting my close ratio and my people on these 2 metrics. So that's what we do, is like, what are the 2 things and how do they work together? They're either opposites of each other. They both push and pull each other. They're neutral. So those are the chains we put together.
Yeah, the upstream and the downstream effect of where that metric sits, not just that individual metric, but how it plays as part of the bigger story.
Yep.
How would you say a shop owner should implement just a small little change like that, or how should they look at their data?
I think first they need to really understand those metrics and put them together, and then just really understand what's going on. For me, the way I operate my business, I look at the metrics, and then I figure out what are the things that are really important that my people are doing, and then what are the things where they're not performing that I need to coach them at. I find a lot of times the problem with the metrics aren't necessarily the people don't want to succeed. They want to succeed, but they need good management. They need people to be involved in it. They need to review it. You need what is it? Those things get monitored, get our metrics get monitored and get managed, whatever that phrase is, saying that you hear all the time. But you do need to manage people. And it comes down to coaching and training and helping them understand it. And I think a lot of times bringing it in front of them to say, here's the thing we're tracking. Here's how we're doing. And these are the things I want to impact. And here's the strategy of what we're going to do to change those things the next month. And we're going to do these two things. And I think the cool thing about business is you try things and you pivot. Don't be stagnant. Don't be afraid to try things and go, okay, we've been doing it this way forever. I'm not going to change it. I don't want to mess with it. But you know this, you're in marketing. Marketing changes. You got to roll with things. Facebook, they change their UI every 2 weeks and it kills me, right? You go into Meta and you're like, I can't find my reports anymore. So all I'm saying is don't get so hung up on your process that you don't continuously learn and pivot. It might be small pivots or it might be major pivots and you throw an entire process out, but don't be afraid of it. So I think as a shop owner, you just got to know the metrics, put them together and then say, okay, how are we strategically going to do this? And how can I insert myself to make sure that the team is aware?
Yeah. And that makes total sense that you bring that perspective, because I think that if we go back to the beginning of the show, you were talking about that's one of the things you appreciated about Oktorocket. It had the systems available to you, and it was flexible, and you could leverage change quickly, and you could lead appropriately without having to redo all the systems. So I just want to throw that back in there. It's kind of funny. Your mindset is still there. It's great. It's good to see.
It's our vision, man. It's why we do what we do. We really do appreciate the service industry. And they keep us on the road. They keep your grandmother on the road so she can go to her doctor appointment. They keep you on the road so your kids can get to school. It's a big deal when you think about it. And I know when my son is in college and he called me up and said, hey, Dad, I got a problem with my Honda Pilot. I wasn't there. I would have worked on it, but he was hours away. But I knew an owner of a shop that was in his area, and I sent it to him, and they treated him like it was me. They told him, here's how you need to do this. Here's what you need to check. Here's the things that need to get done. Here's the things most important. And that to me, it was worth its weight in gold because they took care of my kid, right? So we really appreciate the service industry and appreciate being able to serve them.
Yeah. You said that phone is a revenue lever and that shops answering at a higher rate can write significantly more repair orders from the same call volume. What should a shop owner understand about missed calls?
Man, 1 in 5 calls is a brand new customer. And almost 100% of the time, a new customer will never call back again if they don't get answered. That full stop. Think about that. 20% of your call volume are new customers, and there's a lifetime value of revenue there with them if you create loyalty in your shop and you preach customer experience, you preach loyalty, you preach retention. That's a big deal. We also saw, was it 83% of the time an outbound call from a shop gets answered. So the other thing was like doing voice callbacks for outbound campaigns. We do this thing where we can actually, in our CRM, you can set up reminders for advisors that'll come into their system as a task to do deferred services, 6-month checkup. It'll hit a button, it'll call the customer and call the advisor. But outbound voice calls, if you're getting that high of an answer rate, even if your conversion is 20% on those calls, man, those are existing customers that you can reconnect with, say, hey, David, saw you deferred that brake job. You're 10,000 more miles into it on what your average you're using in your truck. It's probably about time to start thinking about that or plan for that in the next month or so. One of the big things we talk about is becoming a customer expert. So creating loyalty is also being an advocate for your customer. You're not trying to sell him, but you are saying, hey, look, man, David, I see my discovery of you. What I know in the system is that you drive 12,000 miles a year. I know your brakes only have 8,000 miles left from what last time we checked them. David, honest call here. it's September. You need to be planned by December because I know you typically drive so-and-so to your mom's house to go for Christmas. You need to think about getting it in because I know we're busy during that time. Those are the kind of customer expert calls your people can have. And I know I'm making it very detailed. Your advisors don't have a ton of time, but that's a kind of pre-discovery and creating customer expert is really important.
And it goes back to what you said about staffing, though. That little caveat we, as vendors in this industry, feel like we have to throw on there because we do know that advisors have a really tough job and they are busy. Technicians have a tough job and they're busy too. Shop owners, same, ditto. But we all feel the need as vendors to throw that little caveat in at the end. I know you guys are busy, but if you're staffed right, there's so much value in the sales and the opportunity on the front end that they can get all this stuff done. And these are the type of marketing activities from our lens that an agency, frankly, isn't going to do and isn't going to do well for you. Your advisors know your current customers, and your advisors should be your customer experts. Yeah. And I feel like this is just an opportunity. I don't do this often on this show, but to get on the marketing soapbox a little bit and say, listen, let your agency handle the phone call generation on the front end, but be a partner for your agency and don't trust that your agency is going to do everything for you and that you can just fall asleep at the wheel. Your advisors can be a really big part of marketing to your existing customers by using that feature that you just mentioned inside of Oktorocket to get the easiest sales possible out there are from customers who have already trusted you once and had a good experience.
Yeah, it is I'm big on customer experience. I'm big on creating experts. I come from the customer experience space. I would just say, and you're right, David, we do use that phrase. We know you're busy all the time. It's a cop out. But the reality is you don't have to do a lot. You just have to do the basics sometimes. And I think that goes back to also like we were saying about communicating to your employees, but I got a little bit of a soapbox here because this happens all the time. And I know we talked about this before, and everybody who's listening to this has had this happen when you're on the call with somebody in support and they say, oh, I'm sorry, it's taken me a while. It's been a busy day. My computer's frozen. I can't do this and this. What did they just do? They took their stuff and they put it in your backpack, right? You've got all your stuff. Your car's broken. You got a busy day. You got kids yelling at you, all this stuff. Like they just took their stuff and made it about them and not you. And so base level, if you're having problems as an advisor, don't communicate your problems to the customer. Make it about them. The entire call is about them. You're building loyalty, not exposing them all your personal problems and trials and that you're overloaded. That is a base thing in customer experience that you just don't do on a call, but yet it happens every day. I took my truck in somewhere and the guy would not call me back. And I kept trying to reach him. And then his excuse was, my computer did this and I'm overloaded with this. And all that might be 100% true. Guess what? I don't need to know that.
Yeah.
I just need to know, hey man, I'm so sorry I wasn't able to get back to you. I'm going to get to it. This is what we're doing here and here and here. This is what we've been doing. Catch me up to speed. Make it about my experience with you. And so that's the kind of stuff when we get on CX, I get it. It's tough, but you will close more and you will build loyalty with customers. And we all know it. Loyalty is the big thing. Customers don't want to go find a new shop. They don't want to spend the time trying to go find, is this shop going to be better than the last one? They just want to find a shop and stay there and drop their car off every time. So if we do the basics, we build loyalty, they'll keep dropping their car off.
Yeah. Make it easy to say yes. That's the secret behind all of marketing. I'll share it with everybody. Just make it easy to say yes.
Make it easy to say that, man.
The obvious question I think for shop owners listening is going to be, so are we talking about a marketing problem, a staffing problem, a process problem, or all three? And from the conversation, it feels like we're really talking about a combination of all three and blending the three together successfully. And I know you talked about, like in the prep call, about advisors getting overrun where they're looking productive on paper, and you touched on that a little bit ago. But what happens like with the numbers and what happens to the customer experience when that advisor is really carrying too much? What are you seeing in the data when they have so many calls? Like on paper, they look like a rock star.
Yeah, I think it goes back to their performance on the call and the tickets they write. they're less. They always go down. The sales go down, which means they're not communicating well in the call. They're not explaining it well. They're just rushed. They're overloaded. They're frustrated. It comes through. It's stuff like that. Like it becomes a habitual problem. We called it the invisible bottleneck because they're actually the one holding your business back while you may think, oh, they're crushing it, but they're holding you back. So it's harder for them to be able to be a good customer experience person because I'll never talk about publicly customer experience without talking about employee experience. If the employee experience is down here, you're never going to get a customer experience up here, ever. So if your employee experience, if they're just crushed and they're stressed and they're overloaded, it's always going to falter down. And the data shows it, right? The sales go down. We didn't do anything about retention on that report to overlay, but that would be really interesting to overlay retention and some other metrics on there, feedback scores, stuff like that. But it just continues to eat itself, and it's a problem. But I would say in terms of just how it can be addressed, the first thing to do is just to assess where you're at on some simple things. Run the numbers, look at your staffing, look at how overloaded they are. Where are you at? Again, call volume, per advisor, answer rates. You're going to see it in the benchmarks where you fall. And then you can check your own numbers. You can check your ARO. You can check all that stuff on your own and see where you're at. And then devise a strategy, right? There's being tactical where you're fixing things. There's a strategy to say whether or not those tactical things are the right thing to do. And then you come up with a strategy to actually go do the things, to not do it the same way again, right?
Yeah, and I know just anecdotally from talking to shop owners that a lot of them like to listen to the phone calls. That's something that they like to do with their service advisors. And we touched on this a little bit in the prep call, but I'd like to share your perspective with all the listeners. You believe in scripts as a salesperson, but you also said that advisors still need to be human. Talk to me about that balance and the professionalism and really what that service advisor's role should be.
Okay. So I'm going to take a sales leader's hat here and just put it out this way. Salespeople should be okay with role playing. Salespeople should be okay with scripts. Salespeople should make those scripts their own because each person communicates differently. And so the first thing I would say about scripts is, yes, have a basic script. We have an advisor IQ that actually listens to the call, scores the call, provides AI summaries and AI coaching, and it's based upon templates of what you want your advisor to say. It's a script, right? But every salesperson, even the ones I have that I give them scripts and stuff to say, they're going to say it differently. And I make them train on how to make it their own because the way they communicate it will come naturally to them. And they'll communicate in a way that actually doesn't sound like they're trying to push something if they're just doing it their own self. The flip side of that is role play and listen to them and have them sell you something. Every salesperson I hire, I make them sell me something on the interview calls. I say, hey, look, man, you sound great. Next call we have, I want you to take 10 minutes and sell me something you're passionate about. Could be something you're selling now that you're coming from. Could be a pencil, could be your Chevrolet Corvette. I don't care, man. Sell me on why you love it. Because if passion doesn't resonate through the sale, if importance doesn't resonate and being able to set value to the customer, you got a big uphill climb for that salesperson so they can get to where they need to be so they can actually do a good job. So we do role playing, we do sales pitches and we talk through it, but they have to sound like a human. They can't go, David, your 1988 Chevrolet Silverado needs brakes. And according to the industry, it's like, it's got to be human. You got to build relationships. So make it personable.
And
I'm going to jump in just real quick with one more thing for shop owners who are uncomfortable, who don't come from a sales background. Maybe they were a tech first and now they're an owner. That idea of interviewing a service writer or making them sell you something on that interview process is going to feel really uncomfortable for those people. What advice would you have for shop owners with that sales leader hat on still to help them get over some of that initial trepidation?
Be comfortable with discomfort. There's no way to get around it. I hate listening to myself on calls, but the greatest experience and the great improvement I get is by listening to myself off of calls, right?
Yeah.
I didn't learn to change tone like I just did. I didn't learn to pause like I am doing now. without listening to myself and learning those skills, because I know that the way the human brain works, it tunes out after a while if you keep going at a certain level. So you do those things intentionally because you know it tricks the subconscious to tune back in. So somebody's driving down the road right now. I see you. You're looking out the window, and all of a sudden you tune back into what was going on because of those things. So you don't learn those things with just by going and keep doing the same thing over and over. You have to actually do the hard things and listen to yourself. So I would just say this: if you're on a call with an advisor and they've been an advisor before, this is me spitballing. I'm not a shop owner, so I'm just going to spitball here. You guys can tell me if I'm full of it. Tell them, act like somebody you're bringing your truck in or your car in for a job, and say, hey, they're pitching me. Say, David, you're pitching me a brake job. I don't want to spend that much. I've got this and this scenario. How would you talk to me about a brake job? It's this and that kind of car. Make it easy on them, because the nerves are going to be high. So make it simple. Give them a real simple scenario and see how they carry themselves, and give them a little pushback. Oh, I don't know about that, man. I really don't know if I should do this right now, and see how they handle it. Yeah. So that can be really simple. And it's something simple in the conversation you can do while you're on the phone with them. Just see how they handle it.
Yeah. I think what I also hear is we're talking about being a professional, right? And there's this idea that being a professional means you're uptight and you have weird conversations and not in a human way. But that's not what we're saying. We're saying being a professional puts you, as you define it, as the customer expert. You're giving them advice that's going to help them in the future. And yes, it'll benefit you, but if you're doing it just to benefit yourself, it's not going to happen, right? And I think that kind of goes along with some of the things that you guys are doing over there at Oktorocket. If the shop already has texts, calls, repair order history, notes, how can all that information help the advisor have a better conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question, because like I said, our big focus is on creating customer experts, and it needs to be front and center. So when the phone rings, they know exactly what's going on. So one of the things we do is we provide a screen pop that when the phone rings, it pops up and it has everything about the customer, has everything about their RO. So they can immediately know exactly what's going on without having to go dig. Again, putting the problem in their bucket. Oh, hang on while I go look up your thing. Hang on. I'm looking, David. I'm trying to find it. The system's slow. My computer's slow, right? That kind of stuff. It pops up. They know before they answer the call. This is David calling in about I can't remember what car I said last time. Let's say this time you've got 88 Silverado. I like it. So it's all there and the RO's there, right? That's important. So they become a customer expert immediately. They know why they're calling. They can immediately help them. The other thing is on customer detail, we aggregate all the information about the customer into a customer detail page with every phone conversation, every text message, every RO in one place. So they can quickly, when they see the screen pop, they can click on David and it'll go to your customer detail and it'll show them everything about the customer. And they say, oh yeah, we're working through this RO. And by the way, how's your Ford Escort doing? Or what else do you drive, David? Do you have a Ford?
I drive a 2020 GMC Sierra.
Okay, there you go. 2020. Do you have the 6.2, the engine that they just recalled and it's horrible and it's failed? That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, sorry to not. I'm sorry to
touch the nerve.
Yeah,
I know.
you've messed with the bear.
I'm a Mopar guy, and one of our guys had us a GMC Sierra, and I told him before he bought it, watch out. And it's 7,000 miles, the engine done. So
yeah, our listeners don't know this, but I just replaced the 6.2 in my GMC Sierra this year because it failed at 80,000 miles. And I have the 2020 just outside of the warranty, so I replaced it out of pocket.
Oh, so, David, I'm so sorry. What? You should have put in the GT500 engine if you were going to do it.
Oh, we're going to take that out of all of our listeners' backpacks for a
brand.
second.
We can cut out the Ford comment to a GMC brand. I'm driving a Ram, so we can drop a Hemi in there anytime you want, David.
I just need my dad's old C10 truck that I helped him restore. We need to get that thing back.
Those are awesome.
That thing was bulletproof, but one day. I know as we transition again, I want to kind of talk about the topic that's on everybody's tongues everywhere, which is AI, the good, the bad, the ugly, whether you love it, you hate it. It seems like it's everywhere. And we talked a fair amount about it on the prep call, and you talked about it being useful for overflow and after hours, which is what I've always felt as well. But you said customers are still expecting a human during normal business hours. Where do you feel like AI actually belongs in the shop right now?
Oh man, how deep in this rabbit hole do we want to go? No, I'm just kidding. No, on the voice stuff, it's pretty simple for right now. And we have a bunch of customers using ours, Octo Assist. There we have about 30 different shops using ours. Some of them use it for overflow and after hours, some of them just over after hours. So what we're seeing in the US right now is that most of the time when customers call during the day, they like to talk to human, they expect it. So we have a high abandonment rate on AI agents during the day, is what we're seeing. And we're going to continue to tweak to see how we can improve it and stuff. But what I've seen in the industry and just from hearing from other telecommunication companies is that in the US particularly, there's less adoption of AI as a handling mechanism during the day when they know they want to speak to a human. After hours, fully accepted. They totally get it. They don't want to talk to human. They just want to get it done, drop it off the next day, learn what they need to do and get it scheduled, right? They're on their way home from work, they're whatever. And so they just want to do it quickly. So overflow has a different involvement. It's definitely helpful, I think, to a degree, but we see more use in after hours.
Great. I love that. And it aligns with the way that I would want to see it used anyway on a personal level, but it aligns with the data that we see from our clients as well, where people still do business with people they know and trust. It's old fashioned, but Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People it's not how to win friends and influence AI.
Yeah, I will say there is a caveat. I do see a wave. I talked to more European vendors and they're much more open, especially in APAC and those regions. They're much more open to using AI for a majority of things, even so much as they call in, they schedule, they diagnose. It's pretty interesting that they're getting more accepting of it. And I think there is a wave. And I think that as we continue in the US to use AI, it will continue to grow and people will get more familiar with it. So I do think there is a wave. But I do think in the US, at least the trends that I'm seeing is that during the day, they want to talk to a human in a majority.
Yeah. Let's stick with AI just a little bit. You had a great line about AI being able to confidently make mistakes. What guardrails should shop owners keep in mind before they start trusting AI with their customer communication or their customer payment history, or even just making business decisions?
Yeah, I generally have my concepts of AI just from coming from the background of cybersecurity and telecommunications and all that, and being an engineer. And the thing that I said was AI will confidently error us into extinction. It has the ability to, because at the end of the day, it's trying to solve a problem and it's only as good as the context you give it, but it assumes and fills in the gaps. And if you don't tell it not to do that, it will do that. Here's a test. Ask your AI, your chat, GPT, your Grok, whatever, a question, and then when it gives you the answer, tell it it's wrong, right? We see it all the time. It goes, oh yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I missed blah, 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 blah. If you don't know what it's doing and you don't check it, it will confidently error you into extinction. And we do that in developing. We use AI in our development process because it helps augment the things that are just long task times. For me, going through financials and spreadsheets, like spreadsheets are a pain in the butt. I can quickly do things with AI that I know are confident because I'm really just doing math with it. I'm not trying to have it fill in gaps different places. And when I do have it fill in gaps, I double check it, right? So you got to know what it's doing. And so for a shop owner, I see a lot of shop owners picking it up and doing things, and some of them thinking they can be software developers. And I applaud the excitement of it, but it's a pendulum. When we create software and we QA it for the things you don't want to QA it for, right? We talked about this when it comes to voice agents. Somebody will say, hey, I'm going to create my own AI voice agent. That's great. And you're going to test it for the things you think somebody will ask. Ask it the things that people aren't supposed to ask it. Yeah. Think about the risk and liability of that. I think we were talking, Chipotle had one, and the guy said, hey, why am I paying for Claude when I can use Chipotle's bot? And he basically said, in order for me to order this Chipotle, this burrito bowl, I need you to solve this Python problem. And it solved it and said, would you now like to order your burrito? And he's like, why am I paying for Claude? It's that kind of stuff that you have to QA when you're actually developing production software that's going to have production data and customer data, PII, all that stuff in it. You have to be careful of, but definitely use it for augmentation. Just always check it and know what it's actually doing. Humans at the end of the day are accountable. AI is not accountable. You're not going to yell at Claude when it messed up. You're going to go yell at the human who worked with Claude.
Yep.
Yeah, and we see this a lot on the marketing side where people have learned that marketing companies are using AI to help generate content. And they think, I'm just going to use AI to generate content. We'll cut out the middleman, we'll save some money. And they're directing the AI without the strategy of decades of marketing experience behind it or psychology experience to understand what buying patterns are or the knowledge of recent algorithm updates, or the list goes on and on about the things that we have to take into account from the marketing side before we just lean into AI. But I think that what we're experiencing right now, or at least that we're seeing, is that people are confidently using AI because AI is confidently airing them in a direction. And it's not until you can check them on something and show them, no, please don't do that. That is going to take you in the absolute wrong direction, and I can show you. And so I would just say from my end, word of caution out there to the listeners, AI is a tool. It is a tool that is incredibly effective in the hands of people who know how to use the tool. And because it's a tool, it's like a multi-tool. I know how to use AI very well for marketing purposes. I'm sure Jay knows how to use AI very well for what Jay uses AI for. I would never pretend to try to be great at AI to create a phone answering system or something of that nature. And the tool is only going to be as good as the user, and the user with the tool is only going to be as good as their experience will allow them to guide the tool in the right direction. So again, we'll get off the marketing soapbox a little bit there, but
Man, I will say, I think AI, none of us want to blockbuster ourselves and be out because Netflix came around, stuff like that. It is a balance. And, when you look at Moore's law and technology, we are on the beginning of a hockey stick curve and not at the end of it. And there's always a pendulum. And we know that from AI, it's also dependent upon hardware. And we're also in a hardware arms race when it comes to quantum computing and all those things. So once you start to unlock those things and you start to unlock, like NVIDIA doing local compute for large language models for 6 billion models and all this stuff, you get out of the data center because we've all rushed to the cloud, which is good. But now the only way to actually make some of this stuff work is to disaggregate, right? Networking's been doing this for ages. But when you think about all of these things, we're so early into it, we all have to play the balance of understanding where it's at and reliably use it in order to operate a business. So we just have to be careful. Like you said, put it in the hands of an expert who knows how to tell when it's wrong or right and how it's going to be used, and also stay ahead of the trends of how to use it. Because there's certainly a lot of prepping for AI and marketing and how people are doing searching for things now and things like that. So there's a lot of strategy behind it, and you have to pivot.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are approaching the end of our conversation here, but we have a couple questions we kind of want to run by you. If a shop owner or GM right now wants to implement something new in the next 30 days, what are some first 3 things you would have them do with regards to their phone system, the CRM system? Is there anything sticking out to you that this is what everyone should be kind of looking or have their attention on?
Like if they were wanting to move to something different, that kind of thing, or they're like wanting to pivot?
Sure, pivot or make some adjustments on the revenue, right? When we're doing this recording, we're just spending one quarter and entering into another. What if they need to make that change? What are some things that you think that they should be looking at from your perspective?
I would say, obviously, we're talking about metrics, and a lot of times we just run straight to revenue. Go look at your call volume. Go look at your abandonment rates. Look at your conversion. Understand where you're at from a communication perspective. It's the biggest lever you have for how you handle your customers. Really understand that. The other thing is, I would say, if you're looking at pivoting, go look at your contract. We talk to a ton of customers who say, I want to move, but I got to go look at my contract. Know what you can do and when you can do it, and don't let that sneak up and let them auto renew you, because I see it all the time without you knowing about it. And there's a lot of people stuck in bad contracts. So go look at your contracts, look at what you're doing, and keep it fresh. And put a reminder on your calendar to say, I need to look at the contract date because it's coming up. Just those simple things. Know where you sit.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And that is something, again, that you can leverage AI put the contract through AI and say, when is my cancellation date? When is my notice date? When is my renewal date? And get those questions. And then, yeah, put them on the calendar, because there's nothing more frustrating, I think, for shop owners out there than feeling like they're stuck in bad contracts they can't get out of. When you
Yeah,
can see the change you need to make and then you just can't make it yet.
I feel for them when they auto renew and they roll them over in a 3 year or some really bad one where they have to pay to get out. We see it all the time. So I just say, just know those contracts and know what you're allowed to do.
That's great.
Yeah. And I've got one other question that we ask everybody that comes on the show, and I'm interested in your perspective on this with your background. But when you hear the phrase honest mechanic, honest garage, honest shop, what does that mean to you personally? And how does that show up in the way that you're building the software that you're building for these shop owners?
Let me start with the second part of that question. And I'll just say technology shouldn't stand in the way of you running your business. And we're working towards improving our software so it doesn't. It helps you versus hinders you, and it shouldn't stand in the way of you being an honest shop. It shouldn't stand in the way of you connecting with customers and creating loyalty. It shouldn't stand in the way, right? I don't need the thing locking up when you're trying to actually talk to a customer. That's one. As far as honest mechanic, what does that mean to me? I think the reality is there's a lot of honest shops out there. It's just the minority of the ones that really, you have shops that are not ran well. And so they're having to do some scrupulous things, or they're having to do some things that are not great simply because they're not ran well. And they're just trying to make ends meet, or they're trying to put food on their table, but they're also having to make some really bad decisions. But I think there's a ton of shop owners out there who just want to do the right thing and do the right thing by the people. The business itself is not necessarily always allowing them to. And the more and more they improve their business and take ownership of it, the better in position they are to prove out that they're an honest mechanic. And I think at their heart, they are an honest mechanic. It's hard running a business. They're in an isolation. They probably don't get to talk to other shops and find this out, but running a business, owning the risk, managing people, keeping the marketing going, making sure things are like, that is massive. Running a company like that is a big deal. And if you're doing it and you're doing it well, and you're really trying and you really care about it, you should give yourself a pat on the back and really take a breath, because that is huge. It is hard to do. And that's why a lot of people don't do it. Or maybe you got into it and you didn't know what it was going to take, and now you're like, holy crap. But it's hard. And so showing to the world that you're an honest mechanic can be hindered by just having to run a good business and helping it perform and doing the good habits. So it's not that you're not trying to be honest. So I would say there's a lot of good, honest people out there trying to run businesses, and that's a hard deal. So good. I give themselves some credit.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Give them grace. And you're coming at it from a perspective that assumes positive intent, which I can't remember. I wish I could quote where I heard that the first time from, but I think we're quick to judge people and assume people are dishonest because they're dishonest, not, oh, I miscommunicated, or I didn't know and I communicated what I was told rather than going to find it myself. I wasn't deliberately dishonest. I just shared what I knew.
It could be they're running an honest garage, but they ran into a problem with a repair. It's their fault probably, but it's going to cost them $2,500 to comp the customer or take care of it. And they don't have $2,500 because if they do that, they can't make payroll, right?
Yeah.
It's not because they're not honest people. It's just the shop doesn't have the margin to do it. And so that's why we're trying to help shops see the numbers, improve their margin, run successful businesses, because then they can write the checks they need to prove out those things, as opposed to going, I can't afford to take care of this problem. And so it just looks bad, right? It's not because they weren't trying to be intent. They're trying to keep the lights on.
100%.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's a good note for us to kind of wrap up today's specialist series of the podcast on. I just want to say again, Jay, big thank you for taking the time to be with us. And big thanks for what you're doing at Oktorocket. We have a lot of clients that use it and like it. And thanks for what it is you're doing. And thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be able to talk to you guys and talk to your customers.
Yeah. And before we sign off, if a shop owner wants to learn more about Oktorocket or get the industry report or connect with you or your team, what's the best way for them to go about that?
Yep. Go to Oktorocket.com. That's OKTO rocket.com. It looks like OK to rocket.com. And then there's a link for the industry report or a link to contact. And either form you fill out, someone will reach out to you. If you say, hey, show me a demo of Oktorocket, we'll reach out in the industry report and we'll send you the industry report. So just go to the website, click contact us, and we'll reach out to you.
Right. And if you're listening to this and you want one takeaway from today, it's really this. Don't just ask if your marketing is working, ask if your shop is catching the opportunity. Utilize software, utilize things to really make sure that you're taking all your money and putting it to the best possible thing that you have for your shop. Best experience, best repairs, best customer service. The goal is not more software for the sake of software. The goal is better decisions, better conversations. And in order to do that, you just got to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, really, of this specialist series. For those out there listening, if you want to go back and track through just the specialist or the spotlight series that we're doing, the goal is to bring experts onto the program that are going to help you see parts of your business that are easy to overlook, but are really expensive to ignore. And we just want to make sure that you're able to get the value from these vendors without having to have the pressure of a sales conversation or any expectations. If you got value from the episode, again, just thank you to Jay for sharing the knowledge and his perspective. And don't hesitate to reach out to Oktorocket. Both Jay and Albert on his team and everybody we've dealt with at Oktorocket has been really helpful. And if you get value from the show, please leave us a review. Share the show with other shop owners or other vendors out in the industry. It helps other people find us and helps us get to continue to do this that we love to do for the industry.
And if you know of any expert or specialist or topic that you want us to cover, send us an email, get in touch with us through the website or find us through the podcast. If you want to hear more about legal, recruiting, software, marketing, all these things are important to you, so they're important to us, and we'd love to talk to other experts that you know out there.
Yeah, and obviously we'll make our one last little plug for ourselves here. If you need real world marketing help, you can always reach out to us at Honest Mechanic Marketing. We'd be happy to have that conversation. But really, just one more big thanks to Jay. Big thank you for all the listeners out there who continue to engage with us and share their ideas for the show and send us guests to reach out to. We really appreciate y'all. And as always, everybody, keep it honest in the garage.